Emerald House stood first in the inter-house effigy competition held on the eve of Dussehra. As recipients of the International School Award, we conduct regular BBC World Class debates and also have finished a joint educational project on child rights with our new UK partner school. International Days are celebrated with meaningful presentations, and the Independence Day of Korea, Germany, Nepal, UK and USA are also celebrated along with our own national celebrations. As the first Youth Engaging Society Centre in Rajasthan, the Sagar School hosted a national training workshop for the IAYP award leaders in October. National Director Mr. Kapil Bhalla and National Program Manager Mr. Bibujit Mukoti were the key resource persons. Students of the Sagar School go for community service at our adopted Maliyar village and also visit charity homes. We have continued with our heritage program this year under the expert guidance of Mr. Faisal Al-Qazi and Ms. Preeti Jain. The awesome display there is today out there to impress all of you. In clubs and societies, our astronomy club students this year, under the expertise of Mr. Rajat Talwar, an amateur astronomer, have undertaken fascinating projects like angles in the sky, local and global coordinates, winter hexagon, and have engaged in a lot of astrophotography and model making. The Cookery Club is an exciting addition to our clubs. The Sagar School also hosted the following special events. In February, the school was host to over 1,600 students from nearby schools for the on-the-spot painting competition sponsored by the Sagar School Foundation. The chief guest was the international artist Padam Shri Anjali Ila Menon. In February, too, former vice captain of the Indian football team, P. Ranidhi Singh, graced the farewell given to the graduating class 12. Mrs. S. Julka was also present and made this farewell very special by inspiring students for a maiden edition of the magazine Reminiscences at Sagar. The Water Harvesting Week was celebrated from 8th July to 13th July, and Magsaysay awardee Dr. Rajinder Singh, often known as the Waterman of India, interacted with students and sensitized them on responsible use of water. Visits and excursions. In January, students enjoyed themselves in a 5-day workshop at the prestigious Jaipur Literary Fest 2013 and visited the World Book Fair in February. In April was a visit to the Jantar Mandir at Delhi, and we had Dr. Ratna Shri, Director Nehru Planetarium, to guide them. Students also visited heritage sites like Avaneri and the purported haunted Bhangar Fort as part of the annual heritage project. An adventure trip to Kufri was arranged in April under the IAYP program. We as International School Awardees under the British Council have an annual student exchange program with Germany. In June, students were invited by the Holderen Gymnasium Stuttgart, accompanied by Mrs. Shivani Gupta. In October, we invited students from the Albert Schweitzer Gymnasium and Neckarsulm, and in September, our students joined in the celebrations in the Korean Culture Center for Korean Thanksgiving. We have also represented the school at the French Embassy. An art festival was reintroduced in October, and the resource persons in the 4-day bonanza were the creme de la creme of the art world, Mr. Faisal Al-Qazi, Ms. Preeti Jain, proverbial names in the campus today, Mr. Vijay Senigar, versatile textile designer, Mr. Jagan Shah, Director, National Institute, Urban Affairs for Photography and Filmmaking, Mr. Vikramjit Sinha, art therapist, and Mr. Jay Kishan, miniature artist. I was delighted to accompany 16 students for the NASA trip this November, along with my colleague Mr. Rashid Iqbal. Students participated in a 3-day workshop at the Kennedy Space Center and won prizes for assembling robots. We had a most rewarding interaction with the Lycée Français, the New York school members, and I'm grateful to our chairperson, Rosemary Ma'am, for providing us this enriching experience. We have also tried to incorporate small and big add-ons and innovations this session, like the teacher's talk, quiz, birthday song, during morning assemblies, and introduced various student welfare measures and award programs to encourage students. We have tried to further improve the school schedules, and we hope to enhance the quality of community life at the campus year after year and seek your cooperation and collaboration to met out to the children the best of what education can give in terms of value, knowledge and progress. We will continue to strive to make schooling at the Sagar School a wonderful experience and the most cherished time in the lives the children delight in discovering their innate potential, because we believe in the words that nothing is worth the making if it does not make the man. Thank you for a most patient hearing.
I would request our Honorable Chief Guest for the day, Dr. Kavita A. Sharma, to please say a few words and enlighten everyone present.
When we have wealth, there has to be proper use of it. And what is the proper use? It creates, it nurtures, it enriches and enhances all living things and all living beings. That is the way it has to be used. The second, it supports, it sustains, it brings together everybody and everything. And finally, which is I think very important and very topical and very important for us to remember, it must be used in a way to free people from fear and violence. Those are the three important principles laid out for the getting of wealth and use of its wealth. I was also very happy to find so much of community involvement and the reaching out and learning from the communities. The kind of passion that the students told me about the mosque, for example, the Baoli here, the fort here. And it's also because, perhaps because of our colonial past, which actually colonizes minds which take a very long time to decolonize themselves. We may say that it's already 60 odd years and why are we not yet looking at ourselves? I think the process is just about beginning. But as I was talking to Ms. Rosemary, that Tagore had that vision, that you must bring everybody together from the communities around. That's how he set up Shantiniketan, and to the world outside. So it has to create an ecosystem of education from the near to the far. And that was the dispute he had, or disagreement he had with Mahatma Gandhi, who wanted to put educational institutions in the immediate nationalistic stream. And on a more personal note, I found a couple of letters of that exchanged between our legendary principal at Hindu College, N.V. Thadani, and Mahatma Gandhi. When Gandhi wrote to Thadani that Hindu College as an institution must be put into the nationalist independence movement, Mr. Thadani wrote back that with all due respects, people may do what they want, but as an institution, they must pursue their educational goal in the widest sense of the term, and you see the wisdom of what he said. Now, talking of Gandhi, he did have one very important vision, which I think, again, all of us need to remember, and obviously the school is remembering it. He talked of basic education, which somewhere along the line we actually discredited, because I think we didn't understand it. Zakir Hussain tried to carry it forward as Nai Talim. And what did he say? He said you must approach education through the craft tradition of India, which is what keeps India, or which is what has made India into what Jeevan Pani would say, a superpower in culture. And when we neglect the craft tradition, we do certain things. What has happened in our education system is that we privilege the head over the hand. But if you make an entry through the crafts to the hand, then that hierarchy of privileging the head over the hand stands demolished. And therefore it leads to greater amount of equity. Because of this privileging, what has happened, that it has somehow that padhoge, likhoge to haath se kyun kaam karoge? But it's actually the other way around. Unless you put your hands into the soil of this country, you cannot make this country grow up and grow and go forward. Now, it reminds me of a very, I think, outstanding kind of a graduation narration, which I have summarized for our purposes here. David Orr gave somewhere in the early 90s. I think he must have been very visionary. And he called it the 6 myths of education, which I want to place before you. One is that we think that ignorance is a solvable problem. Actually, ignorance has never been a solvable problem, because the more you know, the more that you need to know. And so many areas of ignorance open up in front of us. The second was that if we have enough knowledge and technology, we will be able to manage planet Earth. I don't think I need to elaborate on it. We have not managed to manage planet Earth at all. What is important to actually focus on is to how to manage our own desires, our own needs, and our own politics, our own economics. Because even now we just talk of sustainable development. What is sustainable development? It's not paradigm shift at all. It is just that please don't be so greedy that you don't leave it for the next generations. Actually, we need to look at alternative paradigms of development which would not deplete this planet Earth the way we deplete it. His third myth was that there is a belief that as knowledge will increase, we will become very rational people, and therefore human goodness will increase. That stands demolished completely. We have not managed to prevent disparities. We have not managed to prevent world wars. We have not managed to prevent regional conflicts. We have not managed to prevent poverty, hunger from the face of the earth, forced migration, cruelty. So as our knowledge has increased, it has actually led to more cruelty. As Bertrand Russell says, we are taught to love our neighbors on Sundays, but all the rest of the 6 days of a week we are taught to hate them. And that is why this society privileges competition over collaboration. The actual way to progress is not competition, but actual collaboration. And to give an example, if all the parts of our body started to compete with each other, we would not exist. And this is coming to us from our also now international regimes on various things, including from personal things like marriage, divorce, maintenance, to environment regimes, trade regimes, and all the rest of that. Then the fourth myth of education is that we think we can restore what we have destroyed. Actually, we can never restore what we have destroyed. And that is why we are facing what we are facing today. The fifth myth of education is that education, and this is very prevalent among parents, being a parent myself, I can say this, that education is a means to provide upward mobility and material success. It is not really. That's a corollary, that's not the main aim. And our final myth is that we think our culture is at the peak, at the pinnacle of human achievements. Actually, it is not, because we have destroyed, through education, all that is worth living for. Our rivers are polluted, our marine life is dying, our forests are denuded, we have completely destroyed our fresh air, water, food, anything that we actually need to grow and to live and to sustain ourselves. And that is why what exactly I think you're attempting to do in this school, from the little glimpse that I have had, I would take you to what Sri Aurobindo said, that education is an education of all 5 parts of our being. He actually got it from the kosha theory of the Upanishads, but he contemporized it. And he said, it is our physical that needs to be nurtured, our vital, which is our driving power, which can drive you to anger, and it can transform itself to great sacrifice. Our mental, the mind, is what most educational institutions keep focusing on. Our conscience, our ethics, or the psychic being, as he said. And finally, our spiritual. Spiritual had become a bad word, but now I see a lot of emotion quotient and spiritual quotients being talked about. And so obviously we are coming back to the idea that we need something beyond ourselves to be able to sustain what we are doing. And therefore, how do we get